Thank you, Ms.
All right, well, okay, thank you. All right, I believe that concludes then Ms. Kouemo's testimony. So we will move on after a lunch break to the testimony of the next witness. And Ms. Kouemo, is that Letitia Parham, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. All right, so again, we'll take a 30-minute lunch break. When we reconvene, Mr. Howell, if you will please have the next witness available to testify. Let's go off the record.
We are off the record at 12:01 p.m. We are back on the record at 12:36 p.m.
All right, we're back on the record with the next witness, Letitia Parham. Somehow during the break, my video camera went off, and so I am no longer appearing on the screen visible to the parties. We've clarified that everybody can still hear me clearly, but for the time being, there's no video service showing my face. The parties have indicated they have no objection to proceeding in that manner. Is that correct, Ms. Kouemo?
Yes, it is.
And Mr. Howell?
That's correct.
All right, so we're going to proceed with the testimony of Ms. Parham. Ms. Parham, before you testify, I do need to swear you in. So if you would please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. You may lower your hand. Thank you. So, Ms. Parham, you have been asked to provide testimony in the appeal of Sylviane Kouemo versus the Small Business Administration. If an objection is raised to a question that you are asked during your testimony, please wait for me to rule on the objection, and then I will let you know whether or not to proceed with the response. In addition, please be sure to answer all the questions orally and keep your voice raised so that we can all hear your testimony and accurately capture it for the record. You're going to be asked questions in a couple of rounds. First, Ms. Kouemo is going to ask you questions. Then the agency will have an opportunity to ask you questions through their representative, Ms. Heiser. Then Ms. Kouemo will get a second opportunity, and then the agency will have a second opportunity, and then you'll be released from testifying here today. Before I turn it over to Ms. Kouemo, would you please state and then spell your full name?
Letitia Parham, LATISHA PARHAM.
Are you currently employed by the Small Business Administration?
I am.
In what position?
Supervisory Attorney Advisor.
How long have you been a Supervisory Attorney Advisor for the SBA?
Since August of 2021.
And did you work for the SBA prior to August 2021?
Yes.
In what position?
I worked as a attorney advisor prior to supervisory attorney advisor, and prior to that as a paralegal.
Approximately what dates did you serve in the attorney advisor position?
From 2013 until August of 2021.
All right, Ms. Kouemo, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Before I do proceed, should I call you Mrs. Parham or Letitia like I used to? Or I'm not sure if there are rules about such things before the board.
I'm open.
There are no specific requirements, Ms. Kouemo. Generally, we're more formal than less formal, so perhaps Ms. Parham might be more typical.
Okay, so I'm going to call you Ms. Parham. It's just going to be difficult because I used to call you Letitia. Ms. Parham, you say that you work at the SBA from 2013 to 2021 as an attorney advisor. You were my team lead. I want to ask you to confirm that you were a team lead before you became a supervisor, right?
Yes, I was a team lead before I became a supervisory attorney advisor. I rotated and team lead.
Okay. When did you start working as a team lead?
My first experience as a team lead, I believe it was in 2013.
So when you started working at the PDC?
I started working at the PDC. I was hired by the agency in August of 2012.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so you started, when did you become an attorney advisor? In 2013, is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh. Okay, and that's when you started also working as a team lead, so from time to time?
Correct.
How many assignments roughly do you believe that you served as a team lead? First of all, did you have any breaks of employment between 2013 to 2020 at the agency?
Yes, I did. I separated from the agency in November 2019 and returned March. There was a 3-month separation.
Okay.
There have been no other separations.
Is that would it be okay for me to ask whether you was voluntary? Whether did you leave the agency or were you let go?
My appointment expired.
And what was your appointment? So you worked from 2013 to 2019. What was your grade level when you started in 2013?
I believe I was in GS9.
And before you became a supervisor last year, what was your grade level?
GS12.
Okay. Okay. And when you were hired by the agency in the DS9, were you hired as a temporary employee?
Yes.
So, were you hired for a specific disaster or for? Do you have a term? Did you have like a contract like with an end date or something like that, and then you just got renewed?
Yes.
Okay. And when you went back to work at the agency in 2021, I mean in 2019 after a brief separation, did they call you or did you apply for a job?
I applied for the job.
How did you get notice about the job?
I'm sorry.
How were you notified that there was an opening in March 2019?
I routinely visited the USA Jobs website.
And when you we hired in March 2019, were you also employed or did you have a contract? Like were you hired for a specific disaster?
So it was March of 2020.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, March 2020. I'm so sorry. Yes.
Can you repeat the question also, please?
Did you have were you hired as a temporary employee? Did you have a contract for that?
I was a temporary employee.
So you were hired for the COVID. Were you hired for the COVID-19 disaster?
I believe so.
When you started working back at the agency in March 2020, I believe you became my supervisor around sometime around late April to early June 2019. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. I became your team lead in June of 2020.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
You said June of 2020?
Yes, 2020.
Okay. And Ms. Heiser, I think it's something from your computer. I'm picking up some chimes or chirps of some sort. If you could mute yourself when you're not speaking, please.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Palm, when you became my team lead in June 2020, do you remember whether that assignment lasted you were my team lead for at least 3 weeks, right? For a number of weeks?
2 to 3 weeks, yes.
During those 2 to 3 weeks that you were my team lead, did you notice any performance issues on my part?
No, I did not.
Did you have a chance to evaluate or comment on my work performance?
Yes, I did.
Who did you make that comment to?
I didn't make any comment, but I did evaluate your work, and I thought you did a really good job.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so you evaluated my work. Do you remember did you evaluate my work right when the team lead, when the assignment ended, or did you evaluate my work throughout the assignment?
Throughout the assignment.
Okay. And what did you base your evaluation on?
And the evaluation was based upon production primarily.
Okay. What other criteria? Please.
The criteria.
What other criteria did you look at when you were evaluating my work, please?
Probably then at the time we were working in a loan processing function. And I believe it was the number of files that were completed.
Did you talk to any supervisor about my work performance when I was under your leadership?
Not in particular.
So you never submitted any, besides the evaluation based on my production, so you never commented on my work besides that?
Yes, I provided you with a recommendation, I believe, during that time for another opportunity. And once more after that, I provided you with a recommendation as well.
Yes, thank you very much for doing that. I believe you are mentioning the recommendation because I was seeking a temporary short-term assignment with another SBA office in Washington, D.C. I remember that I was really excited about that, but then it didn't work out. So thank you so much.
Ms. Kouemo is testifying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Ms. Kouemo, that's all right, Ms. Kouemo. I know sometimes it's hard. It's easy to lapse into a conversation, but just remember to just direct questions to the witness.
Okay.
That it's not your opportunity to testify. Excuse me. All right, you can.
Thank you, Judge. So during that time you were my supervisor at SBA, when the team was assigned to perform its duties in the loan processing department, can you speak a little bit about what our duties consisted of? very briefly, just just a brief summary.
Law officers generally review eligibility to ensure that program requirements are met.
Okay, thank you. And did those job duties include contacting applicants by email and phone?
Yes.
Okay. Did those job duties include recommending files for approval or denial?
For law officers, yes.
During that time, were we given a notice of some rule changes regarding eligibility that will affect immigrants, or that will affect loan applications? Businesses that were partly owned by citizens, U.S. citizens, and non-qualifying immigrants?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that rule change?
No, I don't recall any rule change in that regard.
It looks like you froze.
I'm not frozen.
Okay, I'm sorry. It might have been me. Did you hear me? Should I repeat my question?
No, I could hear you fine. I heard just your question about the rule change and her answer that she did not recall that rule change. And then I think we were waiting for your next question. Oh, I think Ms. Kouemo may be frozen. Let's give it a second and see if she resumes. All right, let's go off the record. Okay.
We are off the record at 12:53 p.m. We are back on the record at 12:55 p.m.
All right, we're moving forward, hoping that our technology stays strong. So again, Ms. Kouemo, the last question I heard was a question about whether Ms. Parham recalled a rule change that affected businesses that are partly owned by non-qualifying immigrants. Ms. Parham answered that she didn't recall that rule change, and we were waiting for your next question.
Yes, Judge. Thank you very much. Ms. Parham, I don't see you. Okay, I see you now. My next question was, you recall what rules we apply for eligibility for those EIDL loans?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Yes. What rules were we applying for eligibility regarding files that were partly owned by different business owners? When looking at, say, citizenship, migration, or any other eligibility, do you recall what rules we were applying?
Any rules that we apply in that regard were out of the SOP, SOP 5039. Specifically, I don't recall. The any rules were out of the SOP 5039, and that is the most recent SOP.
Okay. Were your duties as a team lead to transfer directives from supervisors or managers to the people in your team?
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Yes. What role were you playing as far as directives, meaning for the people in your team? Where did you get your directives from? Where did they get the directives from?
The directives came from a supervisor. Our team leader is not a supervisor. We are an intermediary.
Okay. So would it be right to say that any directives that you receive from supervisors, you send them to us?
Yes.
Doing that. Okay. Do you recall any conversation that you've had with me where I told you I was going to do something that you did not agree with?
No, I do not.
Okay. Based on your experience as a team lead and your knowledge on how management works, how is people's work evaluated by management as a whole?
By management.
Yes, basically, how supervisors like you now are evaluating the work of the people beneath that are under your leadership, or specifically attorney department. What do you base your evaluations on as a supervisor now?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. You could answer, Ms. Parham.
Well, I can't speak for any other supervisor, and I am fairly new to this role. But I believe that entire performance, attendance, there are multiple things that are taken into consideration when evaluating employees for opportunities, for appointment extensions. There are a number of different things that a supervisor would take into consideration.
Would you name some of those things, please?
Time and attendance. That would be something that we would take into consideration when evaluating performance of an employee, production. Those are a couple of things.
Now, do you remember, have you evaluated anybody's work since you become a supervisor?
Yes, I have.
How many files or how many people's work have you evaluated roughly? You don't have to give an exact number.
I would say approximately 60.
Okay. What other criteria did you use to evaluate those also people? Besides time and attendance, I believe you said production?
Yes.
What other criteria did you use?
Materials. We look at written materials, customer service. For the most part, those are the things that we are looking at.
Okay. When you say written materials, what do you mean?
Communications, externally, internally. It may be documents that are or things that are prepared to assist the team. There may be spreadsheets, it may be PowerPoints. There's a number of items that would be considered as written materials.
And what about customer service?
The same thing. Customer service, same thing. A lot of it is, it does overlap a little bit. Maybe may receive just as an example, an email from a disaster survivor thanking, for example, you, that may be something that you would elevate to your team leaders or your supervisor, just to demonstrate your level of customer service.
And how did you access, as far as communication, external communications for written materials, what would they consist of?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. You can answer the question, but Ms. Kouemo, it was a little bit confusingly framed for me, so I don't know if you want to reframe that question.
Yes, Judge. When you say that people are evaluated based on their written materials, including communications, external and internal communications, I'm trying to figure out what exactly will constitute an external communication for a written material. Would that be emails exchanged with applicants?
Yes.
And for internal communications, would that be under written materials? Would that be MS Teams messages and emails between team members or with other people at the SBA?
Wouldn't say MS Teams chat, but I would say email, maybe something.
Okay. MS Teams are all reviewed by anybody?
No.
Are there access? Do you have access to anybody's MS Team chat communications as a supervisor?
No, I do not.
Do you have any indication as to whether that was a possibility back in 2020 or earlier?
No, I do not.
Okay. As far as customer service, do you have evaluation of people's customer service performance? Do you have access to the phone records or their phone calls, the actual phone calls with the customers?
No, I do
not. So basically, for customer service, it's written work.
It's primarily written work.
Okay. What other things that are not written work qualify as customer service material?
Customer service, it could be internal or external. You can provide internal or external customer service. External being your interaction with disaster survivors. Internal meaning your interaction with the team members, team leads, and supervisors. In some cases, you may go, a team member may go above and beyond the call of duty to prepare documents or things or flowcharts to make some of the information a little bit easier, and that would lend to probably a higher rating in customer service because you're assisting the agency, which is also a customer. So that's
okay. And when you access anybody that is under your supervision as a supervisory attorney right now, do you have access to all the emails at the SBA that are in their file in the email account, or do you only have access to the emails sent and received during your specific time as their supervisor?
I do not have access at all.
You don't have access at all to any emails, anybody that is under your leadership?
No, I do not.
Do you have any reason to believe that it was different early on in 2020?
No, I don't.
Okay. So basically when you say emails, you mean emails that are sent to you as a supervisor. So how do you evaluate email communications with customers if you don't have access to those emails?
They are elevated. They are sent up. The team member would forward or attach it to their performance evaluation to show as proof it is something that a team member would submit, or it is something that a team member would copy their supervisor on. That is the way that a supervisor or team lead would have access if they were included on the email or if it was sent to them.
Okay, I see. Okay. And okay. Believe that's actually sorry, I have one document I wanted to in document number 10, page 83.
Which board tab would that be?
Yes, I think that's number 10. Is that not? Let me see. I'm sorry. Let me scroll up. Do you have the document number 10? I think I'm the number 10 open up.
Is it board tab 10?
Yes, I think that's one. Yes.
What page on board tab 10?
Let's start at 83. We're going to go down.
Sorry, which page?
Page 83.
Team meeting notes for 10/2020.
Yes, we're going to start there. We're going to go down a little bit. When you were a team lead, did you receive notifications about absences? The people, I know I did. Actually, can you scroll down to 84 also? I believe you are seated in that email.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kouemo.
Yes.
Is your question to her whether she received notifications from her team members of their absences?
Yes, Judge. I was waiting for her to open the document and get to that page, and I asked her, yes, whether she received notification about her team members' absences.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. And after you received notifications from your from team members about absences, what was the procedure that you followed?
Well, it depends upon the type of absence that it is.
What about sick leave?
Sick leave, I elevated those requests or notifications to a supervisor.
Okay. And what about just general somebody running late, for example?
Sorry, somebody what?
Running late.
Running late? Mm-hmm. Same thing. If someone is running late, I would notify a supervisor.
Are there any notifications where you did not elevate those to a supervisor?
No.
So you have to elevate everything to a supervisor?
If someone is running late or absent, yes.
And did you have any interest as a team lead to know whether somebody was running late or whether they were absent?
Yes.
Meaning, was it helpful to know? Yes?
Yes.
Why?
Because I need to ensure adequate coverage on my team.
Okay. And if you scroll down to page 88,
yes.
On that day, that's a notification that I was running late and that I will be able to get in by 6:45. Can you confirm that's correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember forwarding that notification or mentioning it to any supervisor?
No, it wasn't a concern because we had until 9 o'clock your local time to log in. Our start time, I believe, was 6 to 9, and so it wasn't a concern. You were still within your start time, so there was no worry there.
Okay. But if I had not shown up by 9, would you have had to notify the supervisor?
Yes.
And for an absence like the one that I just pulled up regarding the differences where I couldn't log in and things like that, would you have been, how would I say that, worried about whether that will affect whether my request, say for annual leave, will be denied based on the information that you had, based on the text messages that I sent you?
Sorry, can you repeat that again, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. So those text messages where I was specifically saying that I had issues connecting and that I was running late. And that day you said that I was able to get in before the end of my start time, before the end of my time period, something like that. My question is whether if I had actually been, if I had got into work after 9 o'clock, would you have been, because of those issues, would you have been concerned as to whether my annual leave request would be denied?
No, I wouldn't have been concerned about it. It was out of my purview and that type of decisions.
Mm-hmm. But now, as an attorney, would such absences would you approve those absences for annual leave after the fact?
I don't think that it would have weighed on that decision. Annual leave is generally granted fairly liberally when we are not on leave restriction. Right now we're on leave restriction, and I believe at the time we were on leave restriction as well.
Okay.
It wouldn't have weighed on whether or not to approve annual leave. Annual leave would have been approved or disapproved depending upon coverage. I would say coverage for the team, and also the availability of leave, because if the person doesn't have leave available, then of course it's going to be denied. But having computer issues or what have you prior to your start time, it wouldn't have any effect on you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And when you say leave restrictions, do you mean that there are times when leave restrictions are strict? When leave requests are stricter than other times? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
When would that be, for example?
During high disaster activity, a higher workload than normal.
And when their leave restrictions are strictly enforced, how does management let people know?
Sorry, how does management let people know?
Yes, whether that there's a change in the way that annual leave requests are being handled.
When everyone was hired on specifically for this pandemic, everyone that was hired on was new in advance, and the agency is currently on leave restrictions. So if anyone onboarded, then they were told at that time, and it was confirmed whether or not they could work the hours.
Okay.
That was a concern.
Okay. So when you say everybody was on notice that there were leave restrictions, do you mean that? Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
It's not guaranteed to be approved. Annual leave is not guaranteed to be approved.
And how were people notified about that? About the leave restrictions?
They were notified when they were hired on to take the position.
How were they notified?
I believe it was during the onboarding interview, because that's a question that's asked, is whether or not they can work the hours, and they're advised at that time verbally.
Okay. All right. Does that mean that all annual leave requests were denied during that time?
No.
What does that mean then?
It means it's on a case-by-case basis.
And what will weigh into someone's favor and not weigh into someone's favor?
I think it would be fact sensitive. Each individual is different. Probably, I would say one of the most important things is whether or not the leave is available. It also depends upon what team or what group they're working in. And they also, something that else that we factor into is the production of the team. There are a number of, it is a fact sensitive and individual question for each team member. So, but leave is not guaranteed. Approval of annual leave is not guaranteed.
When you say approval of annual leave is not guaranteed, did you mean pre-incident approval, meaning that somebody are requesting annual leave for the future, or do you mean after the fact request? For example, somebody running late for finance.
It could go both ways.
Could go both ways. When did the leave restrictions get lifted during this pandemic?
They have not lifted.
Oh, they have not lifted, so they're still in place.
Yes.
Okay. So, how long are people hired for the EIDL loans working? How many hours are they working right now?
Objection right now.
Yeah, sustain.
Okay. If I can explain, Judge, I just wanted to know, because Mrs. Parham said that the leave restrictions were still in place. I want to know whether, actually, I think you just asked that question. Mrs. Parham, are the leave restrictions in place when people are working mandatory overtime?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the reason why the restrictions are in place, or are there times when people are working overtime, but then there's no leave restriction?
Leave restriction is currently in place because of the current level of disaster activity in working.
Does that mean that whenever is that as a supervisor or as somebody that has worked at SBA for so long, do you know whether leave restrictions are lifted or are relaxed whenever overtime ceases, or is there a correlation between mandatory overtime and leave restrictions?
Ms. Kouemo, yep, sustained. I'm going to interject just that, Ms. Kouemo, I think we're going beyond the scope of the issues in this appeal, so if we could please just refocus back on the issues here more directly.
Okay. Mrs. Parham, how many people have you supervised since you became a supervisor?
Below 60.
Oh, 60 people. And that is still, since August 2021, right?
Yes.
Okay. Of all those people during that time, has anybody been late to work?
Objection, right offense.
Yeah, sustained. So, Ms. Kouemo, I think Ms. Parham's experience as her being a supervisor more recently, I don't think that bears on the questions at issue in your appeal, since she wasn't your supervisor back in the events that we're addressing now. So if we could focus on what it is that she did as your team lead, I think that's where her testimony is going to be most relevant.
Okay, thank you, Judge. I think I'm going to let the agency do its own own questioning now.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions before I turn it over to Ms. Heiser. I wanted to clarify, Ms. Parham, when you were the appellant's team lead, did you have access to her email communications with loan applicants?
No, I did not.
And did you have access to her telephone calls with applicants when you were her team lead?
No, I did not.
Okay, all right, Ms. Heiser.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Parham, can you briefly explain what the job duties of a team lead are?
Sure. Depending upon the department, an area that you're working in, a team lead, generally, they act as an intermediary between the supervisor and the team member. Basic information, forward instructions and directions, and point them in the right direction. We also assist with collecting time.
And prior to Ms. Kouemo becoming a part of your team in, I believe, June 2020 approximately, did you ever know her or work with her before she became a team member?
No.
And how long have you been a team lead approximately?
Off and on since 2013. We routinely rotate in and out of the position of team lead, primarily for experience. We rotate different departments. I may be a team lead in one department, and then I may join another team in another department.
And is there a typical number of people who are on your team, or does it fluctuate?
It fluctuates.
What's the approximate fluctuation of people who are can be on a team?
It depends upon the department. But generally, I would say that average, over the past probably few years, on average, the average team lead has about 20 team members.
When Ms. Kouemo was on your team, do you remember approximately how many team members you had?
The team members in the month of June fluctuated. We were doing team shuffles and we were hiring up. So the month of June is kind of an anomaly. I had between 30 and 120 people on my team, including sub-teams. And then they were transferred to various departments, and I believe I ended up with between 20 to 30 individuals. And then again, we rotate and we shuffle routinely about three times a year, even when we're not busy. Then it went down to about 20 to 30.
Is it unusual for attorneys who are not team leads to move around between different teams or groups or departments?
Absolutely.
I was going to object to that question because I don't see how it's relevant. It's how it touches on the team lead's role.
Overruled. You can answer, Ms. Parham.
Yes, we routinely rotate at the PDC. It increases the program knowledge of all the employees across the board so we can work in all the various departments. Attorneys and paralegals routinely do the same job. Attorneys, there's some jobs that are reserved only for attorneys because it takes a license to do those things.
And I know you mentioned before that team leads are not supervisors. Do team leads have any sort of supervisory authority?
No.
Are team leads responsible in any way for approving or disapproving leave?
No.
Can team leads make disciplinary decisions?
No.
Can team leads make staffing or hiring and firing decisions?
No. They're not privy to any of that.
And do you know if Ms. Kouemo was happy with her role as an attorney at SBA?
I thought she was.
And you mentioned that you served as a reference for her approximately twice, is that right?
I did.
Did you give her a positive reference or negative or neutral?
They were very positive.
In the spring and summer 2020 timeframe, can you describe what the workload was at ODA?
We were incredibly, and we still are, incredibly busy. Incredibly busy. The busiest that I've seen since I started with that agency.
And why was it so busy?
Due to the number of loans coming in with the pandemic, the startup of a new operating system, the rapid loan system. We were very busy during that time for those reasons. The number of loans.
And would that include the idle loans too?
Yes. All of the idle, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
All of the idle loans are housed in the rapid loan processing system. Our regular disaster loans are housed in DCMS 2.0, that operating system.
And can you just briefly explain what a idle loan is?
It is a business loan to offset lost profits. That's the easiest way to describe it. A loan to a business that lost profits due to a disaster.
Do you know approximately how many EIDL loan requests have been received in the spring or summer 2020 timeframe?
I do not, but I would guess a few million to a billion.
And in that time frame, spring and summer 2020, approximately how many hours on average were attorneys or other members of the team generally working?
Minimum 12. At times we were working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And there was a time we were working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are currently on a 6-day, 10-hour day schedule still.
And in the summer of 2020 timeframe, do you know if the agency was still undergoing any sort of surge hiring?
Yes.
And was that just based on the immense workload?
Yes.
Actually, I was going to object to that question because as a team lead, I don't know whether Mrs. Parham knew about the reasons for management decisions regarding hiring.
Okay. Well, she's already answered, Ms. Kouemo, so it's part of the record. So we'll move on to the next question.
Thank you.
Ms. Parham, in your experience in the spring and summer of 2020, was there a lot of downtime for employees?
No.
And I know you testified that you don't remember there being a change to EIDL loan eligibility requirements for the citizenship component. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you remember if when there were other EIDL loan eligibility changes, whether those changes were retroactive or prospective?
I don't believe that I don't remember anything in particular, but it's highly unlikely that something would be retroactive if there was a change.
Okay. And are you aware of any requirement that the SBA has to notify business owners or applicants who were previously denied loans about any changes to eligibility requirements?
No.
Do you remember if any employees asked you about any questions about ownership percentages?
I don't recall.
Do you recall Ms. Kouemo ever asking you any questions about EIDL loans?
I'm sure that she did ask questions, but I don't remember any specific question that she asked.
Is it unusual for team members to ask questions?
I'm sorry, was it unusual?
Yes.
It's not unusual. It's encouraged.
And did Ms. Kouemo ever tell you that she believed that the agency was acting improperly or violating laws, rules, or regulations or policies?
No.
Did Ms. Kouemo ever tell you that she believed that the agency was acting improperly in any manner?
No.
And when a team member comes to you about a question, do you typically report that question to management?
No. They would be overwhelmed.
You mentioned that Ms. Kouemo was on your team for approximately 3 weeks. Do you know why she left your team?
No.
Did you have any role or involvement in the decision to move Ms. Kouemo off of your team?
No.
At the approximate time that Ms. Kouemo was moved to a different group or department, were others moved from your team as well?
Yes.
Do you remember how many people approximately?
I ended up with about 30 out of 120, and they rotated off at different times, and I'm not sure where any particular person went. And I didn't know that Ms. Kouemo was separated from the agency either.
At the time that Ms. Kouemo left your team, did other attorneys leave your team as well?
Yes.
Do you remember approximately how many of those, I guess it was about 90 people who moved, how many of those were attorneys?
No, I don't. It was even across. I had attorneys and paralegals on my team doing the same function, and so I'm not sure how many were attorneys or paralegals. I'm not sure.
And was there anything unusual about Ms. Kouemo being moved at the time?
No.
Are you aware of any leave or tardiness issues that Ms. Kouemo had?
No.
Are you aware of any employees being charged with AWOL?
Ms. Kouemo? No.
Just any in general?
Yes.
Were there any employees who were on your team that were charged with AWOL in the spring or summer 2020 timeframe?
No.
Since you've become a supervisor, have you charged any employees with being AWOL?
Yes.
Are you aware of Ms. Kouemo raising any concerns about SBA's use of a specific IRS form?
No.
Do you know why Ms. Kouemo left the agency?
No. I didn't even know she left.
Are you aware of any retaliation against Ms. Kouemo?
No.
Did you retaliate against Ms. Kouemo?
No.
As a team lead, were you supportive of Ms. Kouemo?
Fair.
And in your experience, are team leads and supervisors generally supportive of their team or subordinates?
Yes.
And if a team member or an employee came to you with an allegation that the agency was engaged in some sort of wrongdoing or something illegal, is that something that you would remember?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, I have one question for you before we go back to Ms. Kouemo to see if she has redirect. Ms. Parham, when an applicant for an EIDL loan has been denied, and then they come back and they reapply for an EIDL loan, is the previous denial a basis for denying the loan a second time?
Not necessarily. It could be, depending upon what the original denial was for. A loan officer will look at the original denial. But again, it would be fact sensitive. Each business and situation is different, and each denial is different. But it wouldn't be denied.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Kouemo, do you have? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Parham. Did you have something else?
No, I was just clarifying my answer. If it was
Oh, please finish.
it wouldn't be a basis for denial, but would it be looked at? They're going to look at all prior decisions on the loan. They will look at it, but it wouldn't be a basis or reason for denial. That's because it was denied.
Okay. All right, Ms. Kouemo.
Thank you, Judge. Regarding the judge's question, I would like to ask a follow-up question. So, is your answer based on your general knowledge on how EIDL loans work, the denial process? Or is it based on the SOP or anything like that, or is it based on your understanding of the rules and regulations at the OD?
It's based on the SOP. It's written in the SOP that a loan officer has to look at all prior applications. That's something that they have to look at. A loan officer will look at.
Okay. So, for instance, if an applicant had applied, and first of all, in the rapid system, are there ways to identify the reason why it's being denied?
Yes.
So, if an applicant has been denied for a specific reason, say eligibility, we applied within a short time, say a month or a few weeks. After the rules had changed, would the previous and then that applicant under the new rules met the criteria for eligibility? Would the previous denial, should the previous denial still weigh in the outcome of the second application?
Objection. Reference assumes facts, not an evidence.
Overruled. You can answer, Ms. Park.
Reconsideration is fact sensitive. A loan officer is charged with looking at the previous application when we denied, and so a loan officer would look at that. That question is.
Okay. So I was actually talking about a new application and somebody that had been denied going through the reconsideration process, being denied through the reconsideration process and submitted a whole new application. Would that change anything? If they were able to meet all of the criteria, meaning would the new application be accepted? Or should the new application be accepted?
It's fact sensitive. A loan officer is going to be charged with looking at any resubmission or any additional documentation, as well as any previous documentation. A loan officer would have to look at the entire record, and again, it is fact sensitive, in terms of what their determination would be.
Okay. Are you handling the consideration at the PDC office?
Sorry?
Are you handling reconsideration at consideration? No, not you specifically, but the PDC office.
Yes, there is a reconsideration team currently at the PDC.
Okay. Was that reconsideration team in place in 2020? While I was under your leadership in 2020, or was a team at the PDC doing reconsideration? Was there a team at the PDC doing reconsideration in 2020?
Yes, there was. It was slow, but there was a team in place.
So would you say that somebody that worked, that did loan with you or worked as a loan with you had any interest in knowing what was going on during reconsideration?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. Will somebody working as a loan officer, say in loan processing, have any interest, have any valid reason for knowing the process that is applied in the consideration or the criteria applied in the consideration?
We're on the reconsideration team. They would need to know what the process is.
No, if they are only a loan officer doing first or second level review, do they have any interest in knowing what is going on at the consideration stage?
Objection, relevance.
You can answer as far as overruled.
Generally, no. The only way they would have a disaster survivor follow up with them, and then just to provide customer service, they might provide them with an update. So that's the only way, just generally would arise.
Okay, so you will discourage anybody that works as a loan from trying to find out what happened in the reconsideration.
Objection, mischaracterizes prior testimony.
Sustained.
Would you as a supervisor right now, I'm not supposed to ask questions about this, but would you have found upon my work performance, say, under your leadership as a team lead, if you knew that I had sought information for loan reconsideration, EIDL loan reconsideration, basically I was trying to find out what was going on in that process, would that have affected the way you rated my work?
No.
I have a few more questions. So, you said earlier that rotating among teams increases the program knowledge of team members. Are you saying that because they rotated among teams, they acquired new knowledge and that was helpful to the agency?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yes. You said earlier that by rotating among teams, the program knowledge of team members, it was a good thing because the program knowledge of team members increased. And my question is, did you mean that it was a good thing because on different teams there were there were new facts or new processes that team members could learn of, new skills they could acquire, and that was beneficial to the agency? Is that what you mean? Or can you explain what you mean by saying that rotating among team members is a good thing?
Well, it's a great thing to increase program knowledge to see how the entire program works, so that you can work in various departments and provide additional customer service internally and externally to borrowers, and increase program knowledge across the board. It serves both the disaster as well as the agency, because you're not having, for the agency, you're not having to retrain, in a new area, and for the disaster survivors, it helps provide additional insight into what's going on with their particular loan and what stage it is in.
Okay. And did you have of the people that are right now on the consideration team at the PDC? Do you know if anybody he was previously, say, a loan officer?
Objection, relevance.
Yeah, why is that relevant, Ms. Kouemo?
Okay. You testified earlier that you don't have any supervisory authority, but you also said that you perform performance evaluations. Am I correct?
Objection, it's characterized as prior testimony.
I think she's asking to clarify the testimony, so I'm going to allow the question, and Ms. Parham, you can clarify your previous testimony if you would, please.
Thank you. At the time in 2020, when I was your team lead, I did not have any any supervisory role. I didn't provide an official evaluation of your work as a supervisor in my capacity now. That evaluation would be more in depth than the role of a team lead. But at the time, as a team lead, I was not acting in a supervisory role, and so my evaluation was limited.
Okay, but you did say that you evaluated my performance, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know of any? Do you know if do team members evaluate each other's work performance?
Team members? No.
Okay. So would you concur? I think that's the word. That by you evaluating my work performance, you were functioning in some sort of supervisory authority or supervisory role. Even though you were not a supervisor, you had some type of supervisory, delegated supervisory authority. Is that right?
No, I had no supervisory authority. I had no.
Okay. I'm going to ask.
Can I jump in real quick, Ms. Kouemo, if I could? Ms. Parham, if you could just clarify for me, when you say you evaluated Ms. Kouemo's performance, was that part of an official performance evaluation process, or was that an informal evaluation of her performance?
An informal evaluation of her performance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. And when you informally evaluated my work performance, who did you give that feedback to, or was it just for your own records?
It was for my own records.
Okay. So as a team lead, you have no say whatsoever on your team lead's performance, and you did not discuss any of your team lead's performance with any supervisor or manager or anyone like that.
If I had an issue, if I saw an issue, then I would bring it up. I had no problems with your performance. I thought you did an excellent job, and that's why I provided the recommendations for you.
Okay. So even though you would perform an informal evaluation, it could have turned into something more formal, basically. If you saw an issue, then you would have met to a supervisor.
I would have elevated it to if I had an issue with the performance of one of my team members of the team lead, I would elevate it to supervisor, and they would make whatever determination or evaluation that they make.
Okay, thank you. And how long would you say that we work on the file? As loan officers, how long approximately did we spend on the file when I was under your leadership as a team lead in 2020? Can you give me a range of time we could spend on the file?
Well, it's difficult to say because every file is different. They're fact sensitive. Not every business is the same. The organization of the company, so we couldn't put a specific time for each for me to review each file. So that I can't answer that question.
I'm going to ask you a more specific question. Would you agree that there were some files where we spent as little as 15 minutes, and some files where we had to contact the applicants again and again and spend days on it waiting for answers and waiting for documents?
Yes.
Objection, relevance.
You say answered, Ms. Heiser, so it's part of the record. And Ms. Kouemo, you can ask your next question.
I believe you said that we rotated among teams quite a bit. And I believe you said that you were assigned to different teams in 2020, many different teams in 2020. Do you have a number? Do you remember approximately how many teams you were assigned to in 2020 from the time you were hired? I believe you said in March to say the end of the year.
For myself personally?
Yes, just for you.
Four to five.
4 to 5.
In various departments.
Okay, so you must have stayed on some teams for months then.
Correct.
Okay. Were you when you moved teams, or when you saw, I believe that you, if you had any contact with team leads or other teams, did you know of any breaks between any breaks in between team assignments, meaning that not even team assignments, but work on a new team, meaning that when the team will end, would there sometimes be a break, meaning a time when the team members won't have access to work or things like that for some time until they do?
There was plenty of work.
There was. Okay. So you did not notice or you did not experience any break at all. So whenever the work ended on Monday, you and anybody else you knew started work on the next team the same day. Is that what you're saying?
And that's correct. And in some cases, you perform more than one role at the same time. That's
okay. And has that been your experience as a team lead or as a teammate?
Both.
Both. Okay. So since you started working at the SBA as an attorney in 2013, and I assume that you rotated, you've moved teams a lot. It is your testimony that there hasn't been significant any break. Basically, in between teams, you just move from team to team and work starts right away.
Correct.
Okay. How have you had the experience of having, say, systems issues or access to new files or that, or has it been pretty quick on everything?
Objection, relevance.
I'm trying yes, I'm trying to establish the fact that sometimes, even though you were told that we're assigned to a new team, that the work itself will not start right away because sometimes you did not have access to this.
I think we're getting fairly far afield from the issues that are being raised in this appeal, Ms. Kouemo, so I think we should move on to the next question, and that objection is sustained.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Powell, you said that you did not remember anything I told you about anything I may have asked you about rule changes for EIDL loans applicants, but you also said that that the agency wasn't acting improperly. That I never told you that the agency was acting improperly or breaking the law. How could you be so sure that I never told you something like that, or I never inferred something like that? If you do not remember anything about loan eligibility or changes in eligibility in our conversations.
I would absolutely remember something related to the agency breaking the law or doing things improperly. I'm very conservative. It's something that I would have elevated if that came to my attention. But I don't recall any situation that you brought. I don't recall any situation or concern that you brought to me regarding a breaking of the law or doing something improper.
Okay. If I had told you that I was going to go against general guidelines and contact an applicant and notify an applicant of any internal rule that was not disclosed specifically to those applicants by the agency itself. Would that be something that you could potentially elevate to supervisors?
Objection, outside the scope of my examination.
Well, I was just confused by the question, Ms. Kouemo. I don't know if you could rephrase what you're asking, and then I can make a decision on that objection.
Sure, thank you, Judge. Mrs. Parham, if I critiqued any of the agency's rules or any of the agency's processes as far as loan processing, for instance, would that, if I openly criticize their processes, would that be something that would raise a red flag?
No.
So if I told you, for instance, that I would contact an applicant and notify them of something that the agency was doing, that the agency had not taken the initiative of notifying applicants in general, and I told you specifically that I would that be something that you could, that will raise a red flag to you, or the necessity maybe to mention to management or supervisor as a team lead?
It depends upon what it was.
Okay.
I'm going to interject for just a moment. Ms. Parham, do you remember Ms. Kouemo ever critiquing any of the agency's rules or loan processes to you?
Not specifically. We all have suggestions, or we think things can be done differently. That's not a real concern. That's not something that I would bring to my supervisor or concern myself with, other than to calm my team member down, or something like that. But I don't recall anything specific that Ms. Kouemo brought to me, outside of anything, a normal thing regarding hours, or we're working a lot of hours or something like that. And even then, I don't even recall any specific objection or concern regarding hours.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Kouemo.
Thank you, Judge. You also testified earlier that you didn't see anything unusual me being assigned to another team, maybe me leading your team. But before that, I believe you also said that you did not have any supervisory authority or anything like that. Would you have been in a position to notice anything unusual about management decision to move me from one team to another, or one assignment to another?
No, I wasn't aware. I had absolutely no say. A lot of times, and even to this day, team leads they find out a day or two after a decision or determination is made. Staff in another department. Some of the decisions are made the last minute by upper management, and that's outside of the team lead's purview or control. And so a lot of times we're notified after the fact that someone is moving. And that's why a lot of times the job functions overlap until one portfolio is cleared out, portfolio is brought in. There are times a team member may be working, in two different departments at the same time for a short time. And there was nothing unusual regarding your transfer to another team. Other people were transferred at the same time. I didn't notice anything different. And I think same situation. I think I was notified after the fact that you were being transferred.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Farmer. And since you've been working at the SBA as a team lead, during the time you worked as a SBA as a team lead and now as a trust supervisor, but during those years, I think 7 years or so, give or take, is it your testimony that team leads are having...
Ms. Kouemo appears to have frozen.
Oh, sorry. Am I back?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. During the years that you work as a team, is your testimony that team leads don't have, because of your experience as a team lead, is it your testimony that team leads don't have any input or any decision making authority in people moving from one team to another?
No, they do not.
You also say that you charge at least one person with AWOL since you became a supervisor. I'm not sure if that's okay for me to ask, but since you did say that, can I ask how many people did you charge, or how many AWOLs did you charge, and for what reasons and what time frame? Meaning the absences were there for 1 hour, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days.
One person, and there was no call, no show.
No call, no show, does that mean for a whole day?
Yes.
Were you, during the time you were my team lead in 2020, did you have anyone on the team that you were not supportive of, meaning that whose work performance kind of was questionable or caused you to have a second look at what they were doing?
Why is that relevant, Ms. Kouemo?
I would like to evaluate I would like to compare what Mrs. Parham said about my work performance to the work performance of other people on the team. Just because I believe that when she was speaking earlier, the issue came up as to whether team leads are generally supportive of everybody on the team. So I'm trying to point out that even though it's general, it's not always the case.
All right, I'm going to sustain the objection. I think that's, again, getting off track from the issues we're here to decide today. So okay, you can move on to your next question, Ms. Kouemo.
Okay, Judge. I'm not sure if this question is okay, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Mrs. Parham, how would you rank my work performance while on the team? I know you already said that you were in my work and it was great, but I'm asking you how would you rank it if you had to compare it to other people on your team at that time?
Objection, relevance. Ms. Kouemo's performance isn't an issue in this case.
Yep, sustained.
Judge, actually, I don't know if it's okay for me to say that, but I believe my work performance comes up as an issue when when I'm being assigned to certain teams, like the data entry, while there are other opportunities. But that's all. Those are all the questions that I have. So I don't have any more. And I want to thank Mrs. Brown for being available to testify. I don't know.
Thank you.
If there's more.
Okay, there may be more from the agency. So, Ms. Heiser, was there any redirect from or recross from the agency?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Parham, we do appreciate your testimony here this afternoon. Please don't discuss your testimony with anyone who is not now present until this hearing is concluded, which will be sometime tomorrow. But you are released, so you may disconnect from the meeting.
Thank you, Judge. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Let's go off the record.
We are off the record at 2:13 p.m.